Good evening, folks, and welcome to Alien Addict on a fine, luxurious evening. It's a Sunday, and I'm feeling fresh. And also, I'm quite excited because we're actually going to talk about aliens and UFOs for once, and not some of the other stuff that we talk about. So it's kind of like my common ground. Without further ado, though, I'm going to bring my co-host on, David. How are you feeling, Dave? You're looking very green tonight.
Thank you. Yeah, I got a neon sign. Ollie has seen pictures of it. It is an alien coming out of a portal, and I can't put it on the show because the damn thing blocks everything out. Like, I don't know why it's doing that.
You've got the lighting from it.
Yeah, but I'm basking in the extraterrestrial glow.
Yes. Speaking about below, yeah, you can find us on all these platforms below. Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, where you're probably watching this live right now, or you may be watching it on Rumble Live or on X, and there's some t-shirts here if you're feeling cold. But without further ado, Stephen Diener, welcome. Oh, I clicked the wrong button. Welcome to the show, my friend. You all right?
All good. Thanks for having me, guys.
The Unidentified Alien Podcast. What a name. Did you think of that before UAP became popular?
So it's funny you ask that because it was kind of at the same time. When I first was bringing out the podcast and kind of formulating what was it going to be, what were the ideas that I had, and trying to think of a name. It was around the time that everything was kind of starting to hit in Congress in July of 2001, and they started calling it, UAP. I thought maybe I can get some type of name having to do with UAP, since that's, that term is coming up more. People Google UAP, then the podcast will show up. So it just kind of turned into Unidentified Alien Podcast. So I kind of played off of that and hoped it would work and it would help. So maybe that has something to do with it. I don't know.
Well, it's definitely working for you. I mean, you getting some. I mean, you've just a few months ago had Michael Herrera. Like, hardly anybody has spoken to that guy.
Yeah.
He's very picky on where he goes.
Yeah, and it's funny because if I talk to somebody, a guest, or whoever it may be, sometimes they'll say different things to me. I like to talk to somebody normally before I have them on the show. I like to say, hey, let's have a sidebar conversation. Let's pick out a time, a day before the show or something like that, and we'll have a 20-minute conversation on the phone. And if I'm talking to somebody, we'll just kind of go back and forth, and maybe they'll exaggerate some things before the show, whatever it might be. But when I was talking to Michael Herrera, he said to me before the show, we spoke, a couple days beforehand, and he told me, he's like, I've had about 300 different outlets reach out to me, and I said no to all of them. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, that's pretty amazing. I don't know if that's true, but as I kind of went along with him, I came to find out, I'm like, yeah, he's extremely selective on who he speaks to. So I'm honored that he has found the, I guess, worthy of his time in his conversation to kind of put out the insight that he has, which is extremely unique. So yeah, he's a really interesting guy for sure.
I would say probably one of the most fascinating things that came out of last year was his story. It was originally he was at the conference with Greer. And what I found so incredible about that thing was he didn't realize till after about the trafficking. because didn't he say he thought it was some sort of weapons or transportation or something like that, and then he went on a few podcasts after. In fact, no, did he not go on your podcast first before he went on Sean Ryan's?
Yeah, he went on with me first, and then Sean Ryan was soon after. I believe he's been on Fade to Black as well. So there's been a few of them that he's been on, and yeah, so I think it's pretty much those three. I've had him on twice. I've been fortunate enough to have him on twice. And I'm hoping we'll talk again here soon at some point, but he's really busy with a lot of stuff. And it was interesting how that story kind of developed, going back to June of 23 at that disclosure conference that Dr. Stephen Greer held. Of course, Michael Herrero, one of the, keynote speakers, if you will, at that conference. And he, kind of laid all that out. Everybody's familiar with the story about, he was held at gunpoint and this UFO was there in the middle of the jungle, essentially. And he thought, like you said, weapons or drugs were being transported. But then he found out it was people. We come to the conclusion that it was trafficking. But then it evolved. And when I had him on the second time, late last year, it turned into a realization on his end, which he told me on the show. I mentioned how, we spoke for a little while before he came on the first time. When I had him on the second time, I did not speak to him beforehand because I was familiar with him. I knew where he was coming from. And this time around, I wanted to have a authentic reaction to whatever he was saying. I did not want to know what he was going to bring up. So when he was on the second time, I was legitimately shocked when he brought up that he had come across the knowledge that it was not human trafficking, but it was actually humans who were willing to be taken. They had signed up for this, and they were, gifted, I guess is the way to put it. They had these connections where they could go out and call upon the aliens and UFOs to come down, and they were being used as a conduit to bring, extraterrestrials down to Earth. That's what it turned into, which I was, again, completely shocked. I did not know he was going to say that when I spoke to him a few months back in that second interview. We haven't spoken since then, so I don't know what that evolved into now as we sit, but that was kind of mind-blowing to me because I had never heard that from anybody else in my life.
It's something, man. It's so something I like to ask because you talk to interesting people in this field. Man, I hate referring to it as that. But so we talk to a lot of interesting people. And the thing I like to ask other interviewers as yourself, and I like your show. I listen to your show. It's one on my regular rotate. I like your last two-parter you just did. I definitely want to bring that up here in a minute. But what do you think's going on?
You stole the words out of my mouth, Dave.
What is going on? Because it's one thing, because I get that people who listen, they have their camp and their idea. But when you're talking to so many different people, and part of it's giving them their chance to say whatever it is they're going to say, you just inadvertently get all this information, and some things click, some things correlate, some things don't, and you're kind of always filtering it out. So what's going on?
Yeah,
what's going on?
It's a great question. Honestly, when you kind of get to the crux of it, like that is the question. What the hell is going on out there, right? So it's I want to speak to two things on that actually, because you mentioned like the different camps and things like that too. What's going on? Just my opinion from being an observer of this for years now, I guess. Yeah. Even outside of the podcast before I started that. Just a casual observer before the podcast. I think what's going on is an extreme version, a modified version of what this started as, which was a power and a money grab. In my opinion, this started as going back even before Roswell. If you want to go back to the 1930s, the incident that David Grush has mentioned with the crash with Italy, right, where the Vatican was involved in covering that up, and Mussolini. So when you go back to things like that, it started, in my opinion, as scientific exploration with possible names such as Oppenheimer and Einstein involved in the early days. And then you go into, people like Eisenhower and the generals, and then it comes into Nixon, and then you start getting involved with, the military-industrial complex, which Eisenhower warned against, by the way, and it kind of snowballed. I think it started with this, exploration into military power, into how can we make money from this, weapons development, reverse engineering, and it snowballed into this massive, for lack of a better term, cartel that it's kind of turned into, where you have the powers to be who are kind of keeping this stuff under wraps for their own benefit because of power and money. So that's kind of what I think where we're at and how it's evolved over the decades. And then going back to the different camps, I think it's important to mention that too, because I like to, as you guys know, if you said you listen to the show, so I always try to be impartial when it comes to, let me talk to everybody. Let me talk to the skeptics. Let me talk to this person who thinks that, and back and forth. Whether it's someone who's in quote unquote Dr. Greer's camp, or Lou Elizondo's camp, or, Nick Pope, or whoever it might be. Like, there's all these different names out there, and we try to ostracize each other on UFO Twitter, where we say, don't listen to this person because this person is right, and they're tearing down that guy. And it's like, and even Dr. Greer is guilty of it. He's come out against him, and Lou Elizondo throw barbs at each other all the time.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I mean, so you have even the guys who are head of the camp, so to speak, going back and forth. And my view is, can't we all just get along? Like, we all want the same thing. And that's the ironic thing about this. We all want the same thing, I think, which is to get to the bottom of this and find out what's going on, so we can have a real clear answer to that question. And I wish that we could all just kind of, get on the same page, I suppose.
Yeah. So the second one I have to ask is it real?
Yes. Now the question is what is real? How
right?
much is real? Yeah.
Yeah. What is real? Yeah.
Right.
So here's a better one before we go to is it real? No, is it real? And then what is it? I think that's almost the same question, but there's a careful distinction, I think, between the two.
Yeah, no, you're right. And it's a good way to put it, because, is it real? The it that I think of is extraterrestrial life.
Mm-hmm.
I say yes. It's just a numbers game, right, guys? I mean, you probably think the same way same lines as I do here. It's a numbers game. You think about all the galaxies, let alone the planets, the galaxies out there in the vastness of the universe. Like, the idea that we're the only one that hit is just kind of silly to me. So is there life out there? I think so. So is it real? Life on other planets, extraterrestrial life? Yes, in my opinion, just for that sake of argument on its own. And then when you just talk about, I guess, the fine minutia of it,
are they here?
Yeah, the species, right? Are they here? Do we have reptilians living underground? Do we have, reptilians leading the government? Or,
on any given day, I'm 25% convinced that's absolutely happening.
It could be, right? We don't know.
I'm never less than that.
And it could possibly absolutely be. We don't know. So what is real from it, I think, is the question. What happened in Roswell? What happens in, Rendlesham Forest? I mean, in 1980, like, there's all these famous stories. What happened in Zimbabwe in the early 90s with the school sighting? Like, what of it is real is the question. But I think it is real. If that makes sense.
It does. It does. It's a good answer.
How long you been running the podcast for now?
2.5 years. Yeah, started in July of 21. So
before 2.5 years, what made Stephen think, I want to do a podcast on aliens and UFOs? What triggered that?
It was, honestly, it was something, I got to tell you guys, it was something I wasn't going to do. I had a coworker approach me, and because I work in radio as it is in West Palm Beach down here where I live in South Florida. So I work at the radio station there, a couple different stations, produced some shows and things like that. So that was kind of my thing. and I've kind of gone into a couple different podcasts, really having to do with sports. Honestly, I'm a huge sports nut. So that was always kind of my field. And I had a coworker come up to me one time and say, you know a lot about this stuff with aliens. Like, we'd talk about it in the halls, or it might come up on a show that we're on or something like that. And she would say, you should look into doing a podcast. And I'm like, I don't know. I mean, and this is what I was thinking then. I'm like, who's going to care? Like, why would somebody listen to me talk about aliens, But what it kind of became was, I was so interested in the different stories that I've talked about on UAP, whether it was the two-parter that just came out with, like, divine or alien intervention, stories like that with George Washington being visited by an angel. What was that? Or the miracle of the sun in Fatima in 1918. What was that? There was different stories that I was always fascinated by to begin with, that I would just casually, as nerdy as this sounds, I would take notes on. I would literally go on my notes app on my phone and write down notes when I would come across a different story or see a documentary, whether it was Rendlesham Forest or whatever. I would write down these notes and say, I'm going to do something with this information one day. I just don't know what that is. And it turned into UAP. It turned into the Unidentified Alien Podcast. And it's been a blast. I never, ever expected for anyone to be, interested in the stories I was kind of throwing out there. But I think what people found inviting about it, and this is what I've been told. This isn't me, like, patting myself on the back. I've been told from listeners that what they like about it is the way I present the stories, which is, I'm not coming on there and saying, this is the story and you have to believe it. I'm telling the story, and I'm putting out, the details of it, and you kind of make up your own mind about it. And then just kind of, that was my approach to it. And, I'm glad people like that. And so I think it's just because I really enjoy talking about it that other people like listening to. So it's worked out so far.
So basically, you've just admitted you're a UFO nutter, just like the rest of us.
100%, yes.
Not me.
Absolutely, I'll be the first one to say that.
Good question. So you brought up the Miracle of Fatima, and I listened to you. And for anyone, definitely go check it out. Stephen does an excellent job on his two-parter. I mean, like you said, it covers everything from George Washington to the Miracle of the Sun. And there you talk about that you're Catholic, and you're studying UFOs. How's that go for you?
That's a great question. It is a weird dichotomy, and it's something that, like, I feel like I have to split myself into two sometimes to approach it. But then I think to myself, I really shouldn't have to, because, and this is my thought process on this, has been through some self-reflection, honestly, because I don't want to contradict my own beliefs, right? I don't want to contradict my own belief system.
I get you.
And then I go to confession and have to tell the priest, like, I'm
going crazy
here. So the way I kind of look at this is maybe from a dogmatic standpoint of, if God has created the earth and universe and all living things, and if God is love and loves all creatures, then why would a being of infinite love only create us? How could you not want, out of your infinite love, to create more beings throughout the universe? And the analogy I use is, just as a parent with two kids, you love your kids, so maybe you want to have more kids, right? Because, like, you love your kids. Now maybe they make you crazy and you say, I don't want any more kids, so it could be the other way. But you have one kid, and then you and your wife are like, hey, let's have another. We want to spread more love. And so if that's the case, then why wouldn't an all-powerful being we call God say, I want to spread the wealth, I want to spread the love? So that's kind of my look at it, and how I kind of marry the two, right? Is
Gotcha.
The faith part of it mixed with, well, maybe they have a belief system as well in God. We don't know. Like, what is their belief system? So that's how I kind of put it together.
You hear some of the stories that, especially when it comes out from people who have said they've met these creatures at bases, and there's been a few now where the stories are that these things, whatever they are, they're not afraid of death because they think they know something is after that. The body is a vessel. I like that. I like that mindset that if that is true, that these creatures believe kind of the same as what some of us do, unless you're a raging atheist.
Which, if you are, by all the power to you, you know. So,
Yeah.
But no, it's interesting, right? It's one of those. I think back to a story of, and it's funny because I was just talking about this over the weekend with some family, with a character known as Valiant Thor, and that goes back to the LBJ administration, I believe. And the story goes, just in short, but to your point, where this alien from Venus, he was a Venusian, comes to Earth. His name is Valiant Thor. Says he wants to spread the message of peace and prosperity and give us all the goods that they have for a prosperous society. And one of the things that he mentioned, according to the people who say this story is true, one of the things that he mentioned was he wanted to help us get closer to God. So that was part of the story that was told from this alien coming from Venus known as Valiant Thor. If they were, you know, if that's the case, then apparently they had some type of belief system as well towards an all-powerful being, in this case, God. So we don't know.
It's interesting, you know, when from the religious front, I go this. I have my own deep beliefs, and you know, for a while there, I was like, if these are extraterrestrial things, and I used to go along the same thing, there's got to be more life in the universe. And you know, in my faith, they teach, and similar is, you know, man's created in the image of God. Maybe that's why they're so interested in us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why these monkeys?
Right.
You know what I mean? Why? What's special about these? Look at them. Look at them. Come on. He picked them.
Right.
We got to watch. You got to. Obviously, they're a diamond in the rough. They're really rough, but I don't know. I don't know. It's interesting. What interview or bit of information that have you come across that just made you reevaluate or haunted you or stuck with you? What pops into your mind when you think about the people you've had discussion with, the things you've done research on? Which one just sticks at you? And it doesn't have to be in a good or bad way. Just what always floats back in that, you know what I mean? That thing that'll touch your mind once a week. Like, that might be real, or I can't believe that happened. Or did they say that?
Yeah. Wow. There's been a few, and honestly, because I kind of have to sift through this because some of it has been in conversation outside of the show, where I've been told, "Hey, be careful about saying this."
That's where the best conversations always happen, is after or before the show. Yep. There was
one. I won't say who said this to me. I guess that's the way I can get around it. It was outside of the show. It was a conversation I was having, and this person told me of a story. And I think this sticks with me because I think to myself, there's no way this can be true. Why would you even tell me this? How could this be true? But it was a story I was told that was said there was an asteroid coming to Earth, and aliens intervened and put it on a different trajectory to save Earth from extinction. And this supposedly happened within the past 20 years. And I was told this, and I was like, what? I'm like, what do you mean? Like, how do you even know that? And how could that even be possibly true? They said it was true. That has stuck with me. And actually, I have never told that to anyone. I've never mentioned
exclusive.
Yes, I've never mentioned that on UAP, because I was told, you know, to keep that under wraps. But I think it's been long enough, and I'm not saying who said it to me. So yeah, that has stuck with me, and I think about that randomly sometimes if I'm just driving. I'm like, what was the deal with that asteroid that aliens knocked away from Earth? Like, I've never ever come across that type of information before from anyone else or any place else.
I've never even heard anyone say anything like that.
It kind of makes sense.
That has stuck with me. Yeah.
It kind of makes sense because I sometimes wonder, like, I mean, I used to play quite a lot of games when I was younger, and there was one that this Kerbal Space Program thing where you'd like take off from a planet and you'd have to get in orbit to go and slingshot yourself. And I just thought, how come we've not been hit multiple times by big giant rocks? You know, it's every so often you'll see something like that one in Russia that you saw the footage of it come through, but it's like once in a blue moon where you'll hear about an asteroid hitting. You see shooting stars, but that's it. And I wonder, because basically we are magnetized. You know, they will apparently our moon just stops them. And is it Jupiter?
The moon is a weird thing.
Yeah, but
Jupiter's weird too, but the moon is stranger.
It makes sense that we're being protected. Makes absolute sense.
Yeah,
that one has certainly stuck with me because I don't know what to make of it. But yeah, you know, when you kind of go down that thought process, maybe it's true.
But who stopped asteroids from hitting their planet when they were advanced?
Yeah, right.
Who said they had a planet here, guys? All right, we're thinking small. Thinking small. You know, maybe they're beings that developed in the void.
So many unanswered questions, and that's what's got me, you know, always intrigued, and why I keep doing the show, why I keep doing UAP is just because there's so many more questions and so many more stories that I haven't even gotten to.
Mm-hmm.
And really, it's because of the interviews. I mean, I never expected to have the amount of interviews that I've done over time. I always expected, okay, I'm going to come on and tell some stories. And then kind of just evolved into, you know, now I'm talking to people. Now I'm talking to, you know, other people who are in this field, as you said before. And, you know, just, exactly. See what else it turns into over time. But I'm going to keep going with it because the questions are always out there.
Well, they're great. And again, anyone listening should definitely check it out. UAP podcast. It's fantastic. I thoroughly enjoy it. I do. I like it. I like your style. I like the interviews. I don't want to spoil too much because I think people really should go and listen to, especially your last two. I thought they were very good. I liked how personal you were about the stories and what they meant to you. I thought it was good. It was good storytelling. It's good. Whole thing was good overall. I enjoyed it. Yeah.
And you don't have a bias, which is good.
Yeah.
Because you see too many podcasters with just wanting to get their message across, you know?
Yeah.
They don't want to listen to other people. They just want to get their message across. This is what I'm about. This is what I think.
And it has to be real. And if you do not agree with me 100%
or fake, you're
the enemy.
Right.
Yeah, it is nutty, especially about a thing that we don't really know, right? It's just speculation.
Yes.
You know, I was talking with someone about that quite literally today about our different viewpoints on things. And they're like, well, I'm pretty sure it is. But how do you know? How do you know? We're trying to figure it out. We don't know. So it's weird when people are like, this is how it is.
Right.
With this topic? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's different if someone says to you, 2 + 2 is 4. And if you don't believe me, then you just don't know what you're talking about. Because 2 + 2 is 4.
Is 4. Yeah.
But in this conversation, it's like, you know, it's so hard because you have really passionate people on both sides. You have your skeptics who are extremely passionate. And then you have your, you know, true believers, no matter what, they're very passionate. And when those two extreme sides meet, we get the conversations that we see sometimes on social media or on podcasts.
Let's not leave out the mildly crazy and the full-blown schizophrenics.
Yeah.
They're a huge portion, and they are equally as important.
Yes.
And I got to be honest, I tend to go with what they want more than the others. Because it's weird when the schizophrenic guy is the one who's making sense.
Okay, they make sense. Yeah.
Yeah. The atheist, nothing is real. It's all fake. You got the believer. It is definitely Zeta Reticuli. And the schizophrenics like me and my imaginary friends think this could be a trans-dimensional phenomenon that's, you know, projecting itself on a quantum level. We just don't understand that yet. It's like, why is that guy the only one making sense? He was eating rats yesterday. Like, this isn't okay, man.
Transdimensional sounds right to me.
I'll start hanging out with your imaginary friends, I guess. You guys are having a great conversation.
You know, something we don't.
Yeah.
There's something we've said quite a few times on this show, that it seems like there's something out there right now that wants to get your next door neighbor, your parents, your aunts, your uncles to believe in this subject. Obviously you're American, so you're familiar with the Super Bowl adverts that happened a few days ago. We did a show about it on Friday. What do you make about all? Oh, thank you so much. Welcome to the show,
buddy.
Lee.
You're worth it, man. All right, you're worth it, buddy.
Absolutely, mate. Here's to you, Lee. It's non-alcoholic as well. It's just ginger beard. Yeah. Why do you think it's ramping up in terms of news? Is it just a trend, or do you think there is a reason for that? Do you think that disclosure is essentially on the way?
It's weird. It's a great question. It's a really astute observation, because that is something that I've been asking myself. Why now? You know, is why now do we have senators like Chuck Schumer or Marco Rubio, or, you know, congressmen or women like Anna Paulina Lunes or Tim Burchett, whoever it might be, coming out in front of the cameras and saying, we need to know more about this now. Now is the time. But why now? And then you have, like you said, you know, you put these commercials out there during the Super Bowl. It is the most viewed broadcast in television history. And the most eyes ever are going to be on this broadcast. And they see those commercials where, you know, Martin Scorsese is looking up at UFOs in Times Square. So you're right. It seems like it seems like they want this discussion to be in the American consciousness, or just in the consciousness of the world, right? You see more stories about it. You see it more in, you know, primetime publications, whether it's New York Times or, you know, whatever it may be. And I don't know if I have a good answer to that, honestly, because it is weird. In all of our lives, we've seen anybody who talks about this stuff is crazy. You know, it's the farmer in Kansas who's out there alone with 100 acres around him. No one's out there. It's just him and his cows. And he's the only one who's seeing these things. They're crazy. Or it's, you know, your crazy Uncle Joe who had too much to drink the other night. He's the only one who's seeing this stuff. Like, that's how it's always been painted, right? And now, all of a sudden, with the emergence of David Grush or other whistleblowers, it has become a legitimate discussion. And you have, you know, these disclosure protection acts and things, you know, you have these guys in skiffs, Michael Herrera being one of them, who has sat in different skiffs and spoken to high level, you know, people from Washington, D.C. The only answer that I can come up with that is really just speculation. This isn't maybe even an answer, it's just speculation. I keep hearing about it. I'm sure you guys have heard about it too. 2027.
Yes.
This idea of 2027 being a year where disclosure is going to take place, whether that means, you know, the Greys are coming down to earth and they're going to have a press conference, or whoever is president or another world leader is going to come out and say, this is the deal. This is what's been going on. For whatever reason, we keep hearing about 2027. And we can discard that and say, well, that's just silly conjecture. That's just silly talk. But then we ask these questions of why now? So maybe there's something there. Maybe this all adds up to some type of disclosure in 2027. I don't know.
Who put 2027 out there? Do we know?
The first time I saw it, you guys can correct me if you saw something else. The first time I heard about it was the former CIA operative, John Ramirez.
Right.
Out there. That was the first time I saw it.
I think he may be the first time I heard about it, when he was doing that, not his first set of interviews, but his second set of interviews.
Yeah, that was the first time I came across it. And apparently he really doesn't do much anymore. I've tried to get him on
as have we
podcast. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, he's kind of out of the game apparently.
which
for
is
now.
curious.
Yeah. So, but that's the first I came across it, and I don't know. It's weird. Maybe there's something to it that I just keep coming back to that. Like, maybe it's not. Maybe this 2027 thing isn't that far off, because it seems like disclosure is the discussion, the idea is being put out there more and more.
That would be something, man. 2027. They're like, it's all real.
Right.
What do you mean it's all real? Everything. Bigfoot, Loch Ness Monster, vampires, werewolves. It's all real. It's all 100% real. The person next door you think's a lizard person and they're weird, probably a lizard person. Really, there's only like 8% of the population of the planet that's actually human.
Now you know.
Now you know.
Right.
Even if we don't get disclosure, at least we're going to get a good year for podcasts, for alien podcasts.
Yes.
2026 will be the year for podcasts, right? Talking about 2027.
The lead up.
Ready for it. Yeah. Yep. It's curious, man. There, and I agree with all, and to continue to talk about where we are, is like there is this weird movement when it used to be if you said anything like this, you were ridiculed, you were ostracized. It may cost you your job. You didn't talk to the media. Pilots don't talk to anyone. Military don't. And now it is moving forward. But the weird thing is, as all the whistleblowers move forward, the people turning on the whistleblowers are the conspiracy theorists.
Yeah. Right.
It's not the newspapers or the government. It's the people who have been saying this all along.
I'm glad you brought that up, Dave, because I think what is your take on that? Because as another podcaster that just like doesn't kind of pick sides, but I find it. Dave's exactly right. I find it fascinating.
I think to frame it is, we as conspiracy theorists have always wanted someone in the government to come forward and confirm our suspicions.
Mm-hmm.
Now that we have that, we're furious.
Mm-hmm.
Why?
No, it is ironic. Yeah. The conclusion I've come to is that the audience, so to speak, which includes us, by the way, the audience is jaded, and they think, okay, this is it. This is the big moment. We're finally going to get answers. And then it's not the concrete answer they were looking for. So then they hear about, well, another whistleblower is coming. And then all of a sudden, instead of, all right, sweet, let's do this, it turns into, oh, whatever, it's just going to be more hearsay. And they say they saw this, and then they're going to go up and say they can't talk about it. And we need more, we need videos. And then all of a sudden, videos aren't good enough. You have guys like Jeremy Corbell catching heat, saying, enough with the jellyfish UFO. Like, your videos are garbage. We don't want to hear about it anymore. And I
liked the jellyfish.
I did too. I thought it was compelling.
Thought it was good. I was like, wow, this is interesting.
And I'm sorry if you guys were going to bring this up, if I'm stealing a question of yours, but I spoke to Michael Sinkowski, who went on with Jeremy Corbell. He was the Marine who was on the base in Iraq back in 2018, who was shown this video in 2018, and they
have you spoken to him as well? Has he been on your show? I've not seen that one.
Yeah, he was on about a month ago. I think it was like around late January. Really interesting guy, really nice guy. And he was upfront about it. He said we call this thing the flying spaghetti monster is what they refer to it as.
I believe that.
Yeah, they didn't know what it was, and now we know it as the jellyfish, but they still don't know what it was. And we went over all of the ideas that were thrown out by all the skeptics and things like that. About, was it a smudge on the screen? Mick West mentioned bird droppings on the screen of a drone.
Of course, he loves birds, man. That guy loves birds.
That's his thing.
I don't know what kind of like a bibliophile loves books or whatever. Like, what is that with birds? Whatever it is, that's him.
Birds and balloons, that's his thing. He does his thing, so all power to him. And I'd love to. I've asked him to come on the show with me a couple of times. He's turned me down. Again, I want to talk to him about. So yeah, exactly. He just
multiple times.
Yeah, it's a guy who likes to keep to himself. Apparently, I guess he's afraid of the questions. I don't know.
He doesn't like to keep to himself. He loves to comment. He just doesn't want to actually talk to anyone about his comments.
He's afraid of the questions. Let's be honest. Yeah. So, I'll call him out on that. And if he has a problem with it, then come on the show, Mick. Let's go. If you got a problem with me saying you're afraid of the questions, then come on the show and face some questions, big guy.
Because there's questions.
Yeah, exactly. Good stuff, by the way, there. So, no, but it's interesting because what is enough, right? What is good enough?
Exactly.
So, I don't know. Are we at the point where people are going to say we don't want to hear from anybody or see any videos unless it's an actual gray talking to us?
And even then,
that's kind of where we're at with some people.
Even then, would they take it?
Right. Then they're going to say it's AI. Then they're going to say this isn't real. I mean, so it's tough, man. It's tough.
I don't know. On a weird subject pivot, you being in Florida, Floridian, what happened in Miami, man?
Man.
See, that response right there just told me everything I need to know, and it's making all my deepest concerns about it come to life.
Yeah, that's So here's the thing. There's
you know what? You know how you're gonna get a tiptoe answer when someone says, "Here's the thing."
There's just I try to gather all the information that flies into my head at once, and I try to put it A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So it moves very fast. There's a station down here, well, in the Broward County area, Broward County, Miami-Dade County, called WSVN. WSVN, for as long as I've been down here, which is my entire life, and this is not a knock on them, they do really good work, but they are known as the station that will sensationalize anything and everything they can. I remember, for example, not to get off subject, but as an example, growing up down in South Florida, when there was a hurricane coming, and I'm talking, guys, this is 1,500 miles out in the ocean, in the Atlantic. It's out by the Caribbean islands. We don't even know where it's going yet, but they come on with their 11 o'clock newscast, and there would be a giant map behind them with red letters and everything. Alert, hurricane warning, it's coming. They love to sensationalize. Now, I point that out because when this happened, there was nothing. There was nothing about this anywhere on any local news, SVN, any station down here in Miami. I could not find coverage. And I'm like, why? There was one newscast that had it in Broward, and they talked about it, and they talked about how it was teenagers shooting off fireworks, and it prompted this big police response. I'm sorry. I have never seen anything like that in my life, where you would have an entire police force come out because of teenagers shooting off fireworks at each other. There is gang violence in every major city, including Miami, whether it's Miami, Boston, Chicago, LA, whatever it is. There's gang violence. It never, ever warrants an entire police department response. So,
you know what I noticed when I watched that blew me away, because my conspiracy mind always goes there. I was like, all right, so this is kids, or maybe this is a terrorist attack. And I was like, where's bomb squad? Where's fire department? Where's the ambulances? Where, if this is a terrorist attack, where are the feds? First thing the feds would do would tell all these cops to get out of here. Right? This is too big a response. You guys got to get out of here. None of that. And no one, and this is the thing that blows my mind, because I'm aware of how departments work and various aspects of law enforcement and other things. They love the talk. Right, love it, dude. They are some gossiping old women in the neighborhood. They love it. Department to department, it spreads. Nothing.
Yeah.
Nobody's talking. And the only things I've heard, and I saw a video of it online, maybe it's true, maybe it's not, but I believed it. The guy's like, listen, they told everyone, we talk, we lose our pensions. That's something anyone who's ever dealt with anyone in law enforcement, that's the only thing they're really worried about. And they seem genuinely scared. And the guy's like, yeah, but you can tell me. And he's like, I'm not saying anything. You're just like, how did you do that? What did you do? What's going on? Because to me, that's not a terrorist response. That's something else.
If there was a terrorist attack or attempt, that would have been national news. I mean, that would have been everywhere. That you don't hide that. Whatever this was hidden. I'm sorry. Maybe
it's definitely hidden.
Yeah, and look, Right. I'm with you on that. But
Yeah.
maybe we're fool. Maybe this was kids with fireworks and they overreacted.
And they were bored.
Yeah, right. I just don't see it, guys. I've never seen a response like that in my life other than a major terrorist attack. And it wasn't that. So what else could it have been? The only other thing I point to that was weird, and I'm sure you guys saw it, was the FaceTime call that the son had with his dad.
Yeah.
Who was a higher up in the Miami-Dade Police Department. And apparently that was real video. And the kid is asking his dad, he called him like kind of joking around saying, "Oh, okay, Dad, what can you tell me about the aliens in Miami?" And he was super serious. Like, "Hey, I can't talk about Miami." He's like, "Well, wait, what do you mean? Like, I was, like, what do you mean you can't talk about it?" He's like, "Yeah, don't ask me about it." And apparently that video was real. So
yeah,
I don't know.
And that's the thing to think about is how could you threaten? Like beat patrol cops? Absolutely. Lieutenant will end them. But you're talking lieutenant or a commander, or captains, even long time, desk sergeant. Like you're not there. They know people,
right?
For no one to say anything, that had to come on from on high. So if someone from on high is putting that much pressure to keep everybody quiet, what are you covering up?
And this just popped into my head. Maybe this was something similar to what the reports we've seen out of Peru.
I thought about that.
We've all heard those reports. We've seen those reports. I know you guys have talked about it. I've talked about it on my show where, these aliens have been in the jungle and really strange reports of, the black greenish clothing and tall 8-foot aliens. And then we hear something similar in Miami.
So this is going to put a lot of things together, and it's definitely far out there. But so we have 3 shows we do on the week. We have the Friday night show, which is traditional aliens and other conspiracy. Saturday night show, which is definitely way out there. We call it the Conspiracy Mothership.
Nice.
Then we have Sunday, the interview show, or just general chat, right? Try and get the 3 of us together when we can. And last night it had come up, and it's something I've been chewing on for a while. I'm sure you're familiar with the conspiracies regarding like Maui, right?
Yes.
Yes. How are you familiar with the conspiracies regarding the town in Peru with the fires up there? It's the same as Maui.
Same type of thing.
Blue houses are left behind. A blue car is left behind. Everything else is slagged.
Gotcha.
And you see these same things in California. And the thing is, like, you look at any of those on a map, none of them are strategic. Like, it's not people like they're moving. That's imminent domain. There's things these billionaire wealthy people could do it if they wanted to do it. Like, this isn't a favor to them. This is nonsense. And if you're talking something like that, like a directed energy, say for sake of argument, right? Just for the sake of the conspiracy, you couldn't do that in Miami.
Right.
People are like, well, why would they do it? What if something's going on and their only response is just full scale? And then you have what's going on in Virginia, right? With the house exploding. It was allegedly a gas explosion. And the turnout of law enforcement and the fact the place was under surveillance by the FBI already. And the oddities, that's why they had the video ahead of time. The conspiracy theorist in me wonders, like, when you're in the middle of the forest, all you see are scrub brush and trees and branches until you're able to, climb a tree and look around. If we were to climb the proverbial tree, would we see these things as separate incidences or somehow linked? Or maybe not at all. I don't know. It's the fun part of being a conspiracy theorist. You can just throw things out there and see what sticks.
Asking questions, right? And the Virginia thing is weird. Do we know the proximity? I didn't see what city that was in, the proximity to D.C. or, any of the...
I believe it was 15 miles or 30 miles. I've heard
that
two
makes me
different
wonder,
things.
Is that some type of government employee who knew too much about something that somebody didn't want to get out? We saw that recently, right? About 6 months ago, a house explosion in Virginia.
I don't remember that one.
I
got to be honest. There's been so much bizarre happenings. It is difficult to keep track.
It's
that
true.
Is the problem. It is too much.
Yeah.
It's too much. I know the Nashville bombing, because I'm a Tennessean. Nashville bombing, they still have all that closed down. They're doing major construction work and repair down there, and no one talks about it.
That was a couple of years ago around Christmas.
Christmas morning.
No one spoke about that. That was very strange. I've thought that's one of those things I've thought about where, that would make more news, and no one really spoke about that.
The stranger thing was the fire department went in. So those buildings are built to withstand like nuclear war. they're hardened. The nodes that the communication systems use for internet and cell phone service, those hubs that everything goes through,
It was
they're
like an
hardened
AT&T
infrastructure. It
type
was
of right.
one of the AT&T. It's an AT&T bunker is quite literally what it is. So you would need a I shouldn't say it here, but you'd need something very specific to try and penetrate that, and that's not what happened. What happened seemed to be an excuse to set things in motion. And the things that were set in motion is the fire department went in after the fact, floor by floor, and hosed everything down. They have chemical suppressants in there that don't damage all the electronics and everything else. What off that network? What are we trying to do here?
Yeah.
What's really going on? A lot of questions. The boys came out to the States and Tennessee. We walked down there to it, or as close as they'll allow anyone to get to it. It's still a secure site. It's a bizarre thing, man. A lot of these things are bizarre happenings, and again, they just keep stacking. They're coming so fast you can't keep up, and
right.
They get jumbled when you try and reference them.
Right, it's true.
I don't know.
I think we're going to get a few more of them this year. I believe
so.
I just feel it. We're going to get a few more of these things that we cry alien, and it's great content, and then all of a sudden we're laughing about it because people's making memes about it, and then it gradually just becomes a laughing stock, and then it disappears, and then it's just gone. It's so odd how it happens like that.
And I'll tell you what concerns me about that, guys, is, and this is just, obviously a general statement, but this is an election year in America, and a highly, highly contentious one with a lot at stake, no matter what side you're on or anything. There's a lot at stake with this coming up on both sides of the aisle. And it just, that part concerns me as to what are we in store for? Like,
it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun to watch from a safe distance.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And whatever happens, we'll talk about it. And,
Yep.
God forbid anything major, but what could possibly happen in conjunction with the things that we've been speaking about that would have an effect on someone's agenda?
Several.
Yeah.
It's, the craziest thing. This is something. Here's another thing. Maybe Space Force was like the directed energy. Maybe that's Space Force. Maybe we're already at war and we don't even know it. We're about to find out.
I can tell you this when it comes to Space Force. I've heard it from a couple of different people that there's a lot more that goes on with Space Force behind the scenes than is talked about. There's a major focus on it behind the scenes in meetings, behind closed doors, military.
Now, how
bases.
creepy is that, right?
Yeah, here's the best way it was put to me. When Trump was president and he put in Space Force as a new branch of the military, it was the way it was put to me was when that happened, and this was coming to me from someone. Well, I can say because his pseudonym, Anthony Williams, who's been on the show with me a couple of times. That's his pseudonym. He works in military intelligence to a point. And he said when Trump put in Space Force, that was a big deal. Like, you have a president creating a new branch of the military. He's like, but when I was there, it was just like kind of ho-hum. Like, everyone just went about their day like, oh yeah, okay, we got Space Force now. And it's like, that should be a really big deal. And everyone just kind of went along with it. So, and he's in his, meetings and things like that. There's a lot that goes on with Space Force.
Any good snippets you can share? Because I can see it rolling through your eye. You're trying to find something. What can I say and not betray trust?
Right. We're trying to catch up. When I say we, the United States of America is trying to catch up with other technology out there.
See, that's an interestingly vague statement.
I've been told that we're trying to keep up with China when it comes to the Space Force. And now
you hear that a lot with that people think the Tic Tac's China.
Yeah. This is a fun thing. Like, I live near, and it's on the show. I talk about it all the time. I live near a government research lab, right?
Right.
If you're in Tennessee and you think government research lab, you can kind of put 2 and 2 together.
Right.
And the interesting things that go out there, people I've got to meet, people I've gotten on this show, people I would love to get on this show that will never do it. And he's on it. Thanks, Lee. Like the boys came out for a party, and I had a bunch of these guys at a party. Guys, I would love. They're my buddies. I'd love to get them on the show. They're switched on things that they're just not going to like. It'll cost me everything. I'm not going to do that. And all of them, would to a man, are like, no, China's not a problem. They're like, well, who's a problem? They're like, that's a great question. He's like, in all seriousness, it's probably private.
Yeah.
And they're like, what? He's like, yeah, like companies, man. He's like, companies. There's companies that rival this. You understand, the people who sell us tanks sell everybody tanks. The
Right.
people who sells us radar detectors sell everyone radar detectors. Like we have funded all of their research and build out. We don't even know how big they are. See, they operate on our bases. Total anonymity. We can't go into their facility, but they use us to guard them.
Right.
So yeah, it's interesting. It's terrifying. But
something that kind of blew my mind along that same conversation was the United States spent more money in 23 on this type of stuff. We're talking about space, UAP investigation, things like that. They spent more money on that than they did sending to Ukraine in the war effort against Russia. And we hear a lot about that.
We hear
money
all about those numbers. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. We hear all about those. That makes a lot of the headlines. And when you think about the money that's going over there, if there was an issue that wasn't important with UAP in this discussion, then why would we be spending all that money on it?
Yeah.
So
I think
you don't hear about those figures.
I think it seems like they're attracted to warfare. Seems like they're attracted to conflict for whatever reason. At least it's definitely what I've heard, and it's what I believe is accurate. Another thing is, like, did you hear the defense, like the budget come out, the missing money?
Oh, yeah.
We're missing half of all the money we've spent.
Yeah.
Like the last 40 years. It's gone. It's like we have 11 super carriers for aircraft. We should have 22. It's just an example. Like,
right.
Like half of all spending is gone. Trillions.
And where does it go?
Where did it go? What are you building?
Right.
We needed something. We needed a budget to back engineer it.
So Ollie, this is the thing. Like all the money spent to build and maintain the United States military, which is larger than the next 8 allies combined. Right? All of that we've spent double that, and we don't know where that is.
Right.
There's just for example in your mind, there's another U.S. military that has everything the U.S. has, everything down to the scopes, rifles, food. We have done 2 of those, and somehow we've lost 1.
Well, I think you guys just spoke to Ashton Forbes recently, right?
Oh yeah, he's a pal. He's a good dude. Yeah.
I've lost count with how many times he's graced us with his presence.
He did just admit it's all fake. He faked the videos. He did everything. We shared the link. Everybody check it out. Watch the video. He admits it in the first 5 seconds.
It's one giant conspiracy. It's all orchestrated. We knew it, Ashton. That's funny. But no, I mean, in that thought process, right? You think about those videos that Ashton Forbes has investigated with MH370. If all that stuff is real, I mean, that's a big black budget, right? You need a lot of money to create some type of teleportation device.
It's somewhere.
So, maybe some of that money goes to devices like that. We don't know.
I don't know.
But it's frightening, honestly.
It is truly like, this is the thing I think kind of bothers me too. Maybe it's on an ego level too. It's like you always think they're going to rule the world with this technology. They've decided we're not worth ruling, so they're just going to leave. Yeah, they're good. We've built next generation civilization tech. Well, you're going to dominate the world. We don't like you people. We're going to leave.
Yeah,
we're going to be entirely separate from you, and you'll never know it. That's
amazing.
That's ominous.
Can you imagine if that's it? That's what it's being used for, and it is to fend something off. That's just wild.
Yeah, part of me thinks that's follow the money. I've always been told if there's a question, follow the money. And that's where you talk about all this missing money from the defense budget.
Mm-hmm.
And then we talk about reverse engineering programs that, if you are to believe, testimonies of whistleblowers such as David Grush, that they are out there, and more whistleblowers to come this year, by the way, which I'm sure you guys have heard of too, who are going to testify to the same things that David Grush has talked about. Then that money has to be coming from somewhere. And that's what they're spending it on. It makes sense, right? I mean, how else are we going to create these things, reverse engineer, going all the way back to Eisenhower? If we believe the Eisenhower treaties with, the Greys and the Nordics, going back to the 50s.
I'm telling you, man, it's the Department of Energy.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because that's how it all started with Oppenheimer.
I'm aware.
Right. That's where it all came from.
I have a couple pals that are Oppenheim fellows.
There you go. So it evolves, right? At the beginning of this discussion, you asked, what is it? And I mentioned how it kind of snowballed, and that's a great example. Things evolved. It started off as one thing and evolves into Department of Energy, and now here we are. So it makes sense that they would be the ones, because it started off as this atomic, energy group where they were keeping the secrets from the Trinity tests. And now here we are, 2024.
They have the security, they have the bases, they have the scientists, they have the funding, and they have the ability to make everybody go away.
The cake was already baked.
Yeah, it was beautifully built. It was a beautifully built thing. And we found this other stuff. Move it under nuclear or above. Why? Because nobody can mess with us.
That's right.
Nobody can come here. No president, no congressman, no general, nobody. That's something most people don't know is Department of Energy sites. The presence they have, those guys aren't just to keep. They have incredible armament, and people are like, wow, you're going to fight off the general public? They're not there to fight off the general public. Do they keep them at bay? Yeah. Do they keep crazies away? Sure. Is that what they're trained to do? No.
Right.
Is that the reason they are armed so well? No. If the U.S. ever broke up, I can tell you exactly what they'll do. They will lock down, because there's things in there that don't need to get out, in all seriousness, that should stay there. They're going to see who's going to win, and then they hand the keys over. They're there to repel the U.S. forces or any organized force. And their security is unbelievable. And here's the thing. It's private. There's no military command structure or general call. I'd stand down, son. We don't recognize your authority. We're here for the mission, and the mission is to not let this stuff get out.
And that kind of goes back to the question you guys were asking earlier too, is why now, right? When you have these congressmen and these senators who are asking the questions and organizing, the testimonies, right? Public or private. Why now? Well, they have this sense of urgency. Again, why the sense of urgency now? But they see that they don't have any power.
Correct.
This stuff is being hidden from them, and they're in charge of defense and budgets. And it's being hidden.
They'll be gone and voted out in time. They're not the real power. It is interesting, man. It is interesting.
Stephen, have you spoke to Kirkpatrick before?
No, I haven't. Only like Michael Herrera's spoken to him and people like that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And they've told me about their experience with him, but I've never spoken to him directly.
So I know Michael mentioned he did. I didn't know if you'd tried to chase up anything with Kirkpatrick after, but I can imagine that guy probably he wants to stay away from podcasts.
Yeah.
What do you think about him denying the communication with David Grush?
It's typical. It's kind of typical for a guy in his position. And I almost feel bad for him in a way, because, I know a lot of people dump on him, and I get it. I totally understand why you would, but it's because of the position that he's in, where he was almost hired to just be a government shill. I mean, in all honesty, you're put in that position to put on a facade, and coming out of it, unless he's going to do some type of tell-all book one day and say, okay, here's what really happened, if he's looking to make a quick buck. But otherwise, he's going to hold to what he was hired for, which is to be really put up this wall. And that's, again, I've been told that, you know, that was basically his job, was to make it look like they were serious about this stuff and going to give answers. And in the end, come out and it was going to be same old, same old. And that's what he's done, even out of his position.
This is what makes me think that the adverts that and trying to make everybody's mum and dad believe in aliens is probably nonsense, because it does seem like that guy was there to kind of put out the fire.
Yes. Right. Which is weird, right?
Yes.
So you have a disclosure push and through the House and Senate, but then you have on the other end a guy like Dr. Kirkpatrick being put in a position to investigate everything and get to the bottom of it, only for him to come out in the end and say, yeah, it's, you know, we haven't found any concrete evidence. So you have these battling factions within the government. And I think it's been that way for a long time, to be honest with you guys.
Yeah, the intelligence community itself is not a whole thing of any kind. Even like a Central Intelligence Agency, there's so multiple fractions that fight against each other for the same thing. Same thing with the FBI or DIA or whoever. They're all fighting. It seems to be fight. They're not working hand in hand. You know, they're not working with Homeland Security. No, they're running their own op. Everybody's running their own op. And I think that's why we're just so screwed up.
Yeah, no, that's a good way to put it, right? That's why it's so hard to get answers, because
man,
it's all one jumbled mess. And that's why, honestly, it's up to guys like us to just keep going forward and keep asking the questions and keep talking to people, you know, and trying to dig as hard as we can until we find something concrete that we can dig up and say, look, I found it.
I see where you've missed this one, Stephen. See, we're doing this until one of these intelligence factions chooses to pay us to say what they want us to say, and then we're all in. Like,
Outstanding.
This is nothing but an audition. Every night's an audition. I get out there, you know, put my thong on, and I do my best dance. And I'm just hoping Sugar Daddy Uncle Sam's willing to throw us a couple bucks. That's what this is really about.
That's a good option too. It's funny.
And on that peppy note, I was like, you know, we've been here for a minute. We don't want to monopolize too much of your time. We definitely want you back on. We'd love for you to have on our Conspiracy Mother ship, where we just get wild with it. We just, you know, as far out as you can put things together, especially if you're pretty sure it's not real. It's even funner to bring it up. But Ollie, any last questions?
No. I think it's I just like the fact that you're on our wavelength. If you're watching this show, people, I think you should all go and head in the 100%. Description and go watch the podcast.
Yes.
Because you know it's good when you listen to everybody's side of it, and you listen to many stories, because I think all these stories eventually puts some of the clues together. I think that nobody's right in this. You know, whether it's the myths coming out of Skinwalker, whether it's the stuff coming out of Area 51, things that go bump in the night. I think it's all linked, and I think people need to listen to people who just branch out.
Definitely.
But yeah, you do a great job, my friend.
You do a great job. Anyone listening should definitely check out the show. Stephen, we'd love for you to hang around before we bounce out, so we can, you know, have the good conversation afterwards that all these people are going to miss out on.
We do a 10 minutes after.
Yeah. But any final thoughts for our audience?
No, just you know, I appreciate you guys. I appreciate your kind words. It means a lot that you guys enjoy the show, and it means a lot the general audience who's enjoyed the show. You know, it's certainly gone past any of my wildest expectations, and I hope it continues to grow. And you know, I'm going to keep going as long as everybody likes to listen. I'm going to keep going and doing the interviews and coming up with new episodes and writing new things. So I'll be getting back into it this week. And for anybody who hasn't heard it or is curious, like you guys said, you pointed it out, UAP podcast. It's on any of the, podcast channels, Apple, Spotify, anywhere you find a podcast, you can find it. I'm going to try to get more out on YouTube coming up here soon. I know YouTube is big, so I'm going to
it's brutal here, man. It's brutal. We're gaining way more ground in Spotify than we are able to gain here.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I guess you never know then. So wherever you can find me, look at UA Podcast 850 on social media with Twitter and TikTok and all that stuff. Also on YouTube, I have a few videos on there. So if you're interested in the show and you like what we did here tonight, go ahead and look for it. There's a lot of stuff there, and appreciate you guys having me on.
Who have you got coming up next? Have you got any? Have you got anybody in the pipeline?
Some ideas coming up. I do want to get Michael Vera back on. He's a tough guy, nailed down. He's got a lot going on, so I want to get him back on soon. Hopefully, maybe within the next month. Nick Pope and I have, from Ancient Aliens and everything. Him and I have been in contact. I'll have him on again soon, and also some couple of skeptics. I'm going to try to get on the show soon as well.
All sides, man. All sides.
Yeah. So I'm going to try to get that going along with the classic stories that everybody's used to, with the storytelling aspect of the original UAP. So some fun stuff coming up.
Nice.
Beautiful, mate. Thank you so much for coming on. Go ahead on in the description, people. The UAP podcast. Unidentified alien podcast. Come on.
That's it.
Can't believe you were first. You were first to grab that. Well done, mate. Well done.
Yeah, it was a good move.
No, I appreciate it, guys. Thank you for everything tonight. I appreciate it.
Yeah. I think we should make the thong thing a bit, right? Like a dancing thong, like a Greer dancing thong.
Definitely, Dave.
Yeah, we need to have that next.